I turned 81 the day my life caught fire, literally. It was supposed to be a quiet evening, the kind of quiet you grow to appreciate after decades of noise kids, bills, funerals, and years that vanish before you can count them. I had woken up early, like always, made my coffee strong and bitter. Logan used to say it matched my personality. He wasn't wrong. God rest his soul. I looked out at my lilacs that morning. Logan and I planted them when we first bought the house, and after nearly 60 years, they still stood taller than Megist like the memories. That garden was the last piece of him I had left. That, and the land it sat on. They were all supposed to arrive at 5 o'clock sharp. My son G, his polished but ice-hearted wife, Winona, my daughter Aubrey, her flashy husband Zephyr, and the grandchildren Marlo with her phone glued to her hand, and Thornton with his brand-new watch he clearly couldn't afford. By 4:30, G and Winona were already at the door. He had a forced smile on his face, a gut hanging over his belt, and a box of chocolates I couldn't stand. Lilies. He knew I hated them. Winona wore her best Stepford wife expression, the kind you'd think was heartfelt until you noticed the eyes. Cold, calculating, always scanning for signs of weakness. "Happy birthday, Mom," G said, handing me the chocolates. "We were worried about you, you know." I just smiled. Let them think I was fading. Soon, Aubrey and Zephyr arrived, him laughing like he owned the place, her with tired eyes that sparkled just enough to remind me of all the lies she used to tell when she was a little girl. The grandkids trickled in last, detached and distracted. They couldn't even sit through cake without scrolling. It was textbook. They sat around the table, asked me if I was scared to live alone in such a big house, mentioned how dangerous it was for someone my age. Aubrey brought up the time I slipped in the bathroom last month, like it was a near-death experience. Please, I'd had worse falls in my 20s, dancing barefoot in Logan's old bar. That's when G casually dropped it. "A lot of people are moving into Quiet Harbor, Mom. It's new, peaceful, great staff, beautiful gardens." Translation? A nursing home 10 miles away? Fancy, sure, but it smelled like exile. Winona smiled too wide when she chimed in. "They'd be happy to take you. I already made a few calls just in case." And there it was. Not a suggestion in arrangement. I said nothing, just nodded, sipped the terrible wine they brought, and watched them talk about schools, insurance, and remodeling projects they clearly couldn't afford. Around 8, they left. All at once. "We'll help you clean up, Mom," Aubrey offered. No, go, it's getting dark," I replied. They left so fast you'd think the house was haunted. And then, silence. I cleared the dishes, turned off the lights, climbed up to my bedroom, and sat down for a short rest. But something woke me. Smoke. Thick. Acrid. Crawling under the door. I leapt to my feet, grabbed the bag I always kept by the nightstand, an old habit from Logan's time, and opened the window. I climbed out onto the porch roof, just like I used to sneak out to see him when my parents forbade it. My hands remembered every move, every step. I made it down the trellis just as flames swallowed the first floor. By the time the fire trucks showed up, there was nothing left. And yet, somehow, all of my children showed up just as fast-dressed, composed, worried, too composed. G hugged me, his hand heavy on my shoulder. Aubrey's voice trembled, but not with fear, with adrenaline. The kind you get when a plan is falling perfectly into place. I knew then what I had suspected all evening. It wasn't an accident. It was a job. A clean one, but not clean enough. They thought I'd just fold, that the fire would scare me into submission. But Logan taught me better. The hardest blow is the one they don't see coming. And I still had cards to play. By dawn, my house was nothing but ash and memories. The fire department called it a probable short circuit. They didn't say it to me, though. They said it to G, like I was already someone who needed to be spoken around, not to. Like I didn't exist in my own story anymore. I stood there in my robe, clutching my emergency bag, my documents, my ID, the key to the safe deposit box Logan had set up decades ago. That bag was more than paper. It was leverage. It was legacy. G was the first to arrive. He looked horrified but not surprised. That was the problem. His eyes gave him away. They darted too quickly, avoided mine just enough. He hugged me. His hand, again, too heavy on my shoulder. "Mom, we're just glad you're okay," he said. And I nodded, pretending to believe it. Aubrey followed, rushing toward me, voice soft and panicked. But her hands were trembling not with fear, with adrenaline. And just for a second, the corners of her lips fought a smirk she couldn't fully control. They thought it was over. That the old house, now ash, had taken all my power with it. That without those four walls, I'd give up. That I'd surrender. But what they forgot is that the house was never my stronghold. It was the land. And I still owned the land. That night, I was temporarily moved into Quiet Harbor. Or so they said. The paperwork had already been signed. Winona was practically giddy. She had a suitcase, ready brand new clothes, all in sterile colors and synthetic fabric, none of which were mine. I smiled and played the part. Logan always told me, "Let them think you're weaker than you are. That's when you strike." So I sat in the back seat, watching the world pass by through the window like a woman defeated. But inside, I was writing a new chapter. Quiet Harbor was clean, polished, polite, a little too polite, the kind of place that smelled like lavender, disinfectant, and slow death. My new room had a view of a pristine garden, and every nurse had a name tag and a customer service voice. "Don't get comfortable," I whispered to myself that first night. Because this wasn't home. This was war. The next morning, I met Linda, my assigned caregiver. She had a smile like a Hallmark card, and a way of talking to me like I was 5. "How did you sleep, Mrs. Vastel?" "I didn't die in my sleep, if that's what you're asking." She laughed, awkwardly. "I got dressed myself on purpose. I walked to the dining room on purpose. Every step, every nod, every smile was calculated. I needed to learn this place, its people, its weaknesses." At breakfast, I was seated next to a man named Webley Holt. Strong hands, farmer's tan, no interest in small talk. Perfect. I liked him immediately. 50 years on the land," he said proudly when I asked about his plate. Arranging habits. "Accountant. 40 years, I replied. We both measure life by rows. By the end of the day, I'd already memorized the nurse rotation, the security routines, and most importantly, the location of the public phone. I made 3 calls. First, Marcus Fielding, my lawyer, Logan's old friend, trusted, discreet. "Marcus, I'm in Quiet Harbor, and I think my children tried to kill me." His voice didn't tremble. "What do you need?" Second, Rita Saunders, now at the fire department. "Rita, I need a copy of the incident report, off the record." "Iris, that's bending rules. You remember when I helped cover your audit error in '98? Silence. Then, "You'll have it by tomorrow." Third, Jenkins, ex, cop, ex, legman, still dangerous. I need background on G and Aubrey, finances, contacts, especially lately. There was a long pause, then a low chuckle. "You haven't changed, Iris." "Neither have they." Within 48 hours, the first answers trickled in. The fire, 2 separate points of origin, traces of accelerant, faulty alarm system, despite a recent inspection. The money? G was drowning in renovation debt. Aubrey and Zephyr had defaulted on a loan last quarter. The motive? Clear as day. But the real kicker? They had already filed for the insurance payout and even applied to represent me, citing incapacity due to age. That was it. The match had been lit long before the fire. And now? It was time I lit one of my own. Quiet Harbor wasn't a prison. Not on paper. It had a pleasant little garden with clean benches and neatly trimmed hedges. The staff wore pastel uniforms and practiced patient smiles. The walls were painted in shades of calm beige, sky blue, sage green. But underneath all the tranquility, it was still what it was. A warehouse for people the world no longer needed. But I wasn't useless. I was watching, calculating, planning. Every morning, Linda the caregiver would knock twice before entering. "Good morning, Mrs. Vastel," she chirped. "Still alive," I'd mutter, brushing past her. "Oh, you!" She'd giggle, like I was her grandmother in a sitcom. She had no idea I was memorizing every hallway, every locked door, every whispered conversation between nurses. I wasn't adjusting. I was infiltrating. At breakfast, I always sat with Webley Holt, the ex-farmer, broad shoulders, eyes like weathered stone. He spoke little, but when he did, it mattered. "My son comes every Wednesday," he said one morning. "Name's Fergus. Good boy. Wants to open his own farm shop. Can't find a place? Land's too expensive now. Big developers bought it all." That caught my ear. "What neighborhood is he looking in?" "Downtown. Same area where your house used to be, I think." I took a slow sip of my tea. Interesting. Very interesting. That afternoon, I called Marcus from the public, phone allocated just off the recreation room, always unattended during bingo hour. "I want you to look into something," I told him. "My son and daughter have filed for control over the insurance payout. Find out everything what they're planning, who they've contacted, and most importantly, what kind of debt they're drowning in." Marcus didn't ask questions. That's why I trusted him. My next call was to Rita at the fire department. "Accelerant," she said bluntly. 2 points of origin. Alarm system was tampered with. Whoever filed the report covered it up or got paid off. I'm emailing you the real one. I owe you. Number, we're even now. The final call was to Jenkins, my old friend from Logan's days. "You were right," he growled. "Your son-in-law met with someone last week, known for fire jobs. Also, Aubrey withdrew $2,000 in cash the same day. Photos? Already sent to Marcus." I hung up, staring at the garden outside. People walked, birds chirped. An old man watered tulips like the world was still whole. But my world had caught fire, and I was rebuilding it in silence. A few days later, I made my move. Over a quiet lunch, I leaned toward Webley. "You said Fergus needs land for a farm shop. What if I told you I have the perfect load affordable in the right neighborhood, no legal strings?" He blinked. "You own land?" I did. Still do. The house burned, but the land's mine. They think I'm done. I'm not. That Saturday, Fergus came to visit. He had calloused hands, a polite manner, and eyes that lit up when I showed him the location. "You'd really sell this to me? For that price?" "Only if you keep it a farm shop. No shopping mall. No chain restaurant. Something that feeds the community." "I'll talk to the bank today," he said, standing up, visibly shaken by the offer. "I'll make this happen." "Good," I said. "But don't take too long. I have other offers." I didn't. But confidence is more powerful than fire. That night, I opened my old leather notebook, Logan's gift on our first anniversary. Inside it, I wrote, Phase 1, infiltration complete. Phase 2, secure ally, Fergus. Phase 3, strip their leverage insurance, permits, trust. Phase 4, reclaim control of the land quietly. I also made note of an idea. If Fergus really got the loan and bought the property, that would shatter my children's commercial dreams. They had already applied for permits, assuming I was too old to know what was happening. They underestimated me. They forgot who taught me how to read contracts with a razor's edge. They forgot who Logan married. A few days later, Marcus called. "They've already submitted a proposal to build a shopping center on your land. They listed you as the owner but also claimed they were acting under your authorization. And they're not, of course. Not even close. I've already flagged it with the city. Let them believe it's working, I said. Delay them. But don't reveal anything yet. What's your next move? We close the deal with Fergus, I said. And then, we teach them what it means to underestimate their mother. The moment Fergus called and said, "The bank approved the loan. I'm ready," I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. Logan would have poured a drink. Marcus drew up the paperwork with precision. He knew this wasn't just a land sale. This was strategy. This was war by contract. And every clause, every signature, every notarized line was a dagger pointed at the heart of my children's betrayal. The sale went through quietly. No press. No public record beyond the required filings. Just one elderly woman in a dark blue pantsuit, sitting across from a young farmer, shaking hands like two CEOs closing a corporate merger. "You won't regret this, Mrs. Vastel," Fergus said. "This land's gonna grow more than crops. It'll grow something people believe in." "I'm counting on that," I said. I meant it. 2 days later, Marcus called me with news. "They found out," he said flatly. "G and Aubrey? They stormed the city office when they saw the deed transfer, tried to file an injunction. Did it stick? Not a chance. We dotted every I, crossed every I. It's airtight." Good. Let them rage. I didn't need to see their faces to know what they looked like. Pale, angry, suddenly aware that they weren't in control. For once, I was 3 steps ahead and they were chasing ghosts. But that wasn't enough. No, not yet. I wanted them to feel it. So I drafted the new lease agreements for the properties they thought they owned. Land they had built their homes on, raised their children on. Land that legally belonged to Vastel Properties. To me. Each lease now listed full market rent, due monthly. Not the symbolic pittance they had been paying for decades. No family discounts. No sweetheart terms. Just cold, hard numbers. With the leases, I enclosed a handwritten note. "You have 30 days to decide. Truth and repentance. Or new terms. Choose wisely." "Mom." I sent them by courier. No email, no phone call. I wanted them to hold it in their hands. Feel the paper. See the ink. No, I meant every word. Then I waited. In the meantime, Fergus kept me updated. The site where my house once stood was now buzzing with activity surveyors, architects, fresh earth being turned. A new beginning rising from the ashes. "Your kids showed up," he said one morning. "Tried to tell me I didn't own the land. I showed them the deed. Certified. They didn't like that." I'm sure they didn't. G hated being outmaneuvered. He was used to dealing with people too tired to fight back. But I wasn't tired. I was alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. And I wasn't done. I called for a meeting. Everyone G, Aubrey, Winona, Zephyr was to meet me at Quiet Harbor's small conference room on Sunday. No excuses. They arrived, all dressed like they were going to a funeral tense. Quiet. Unwilling to make eye contact. I wore my navy blue suit again. Logan used to say, "The sharpest knife in the room is the one wearing tailored sleeves." "Sit," I said. "Let's talk. We want to discuss the new lease terms." G started. "You mean the land you've lived on for 30 years, rent-free? That land?" Silence. "Why are you doing this?" Aubrey finally asked. "We're family." "No," I said slowly. "Family doesn't burn down each other's homes." Her eyes dropped. "I have the fire report. I have photos. I have bank statements. I have everything. You were in debt. You saw my house and my life as a way out." "It was Zephyr's idea," Aubrey muttered. "He said you'd be safe, that the house wouldn't burn too fast." Oh, so thoughtful. No one laughed. Then I leaned forward and dropped the bomb. "Vastel Properties. You know it?" Winona blinked. "That's who we've been paying rent to." "Correct. And I own it. Have since Logan died." They all froze. You've been living on my land all these years. Now you pay what everyone else pays. Or you leave. You can't evict your own kids, G said, panicked. I'm not evicting anyone. I'm offering a choice. Pay market rate. Or sell your homes and move. But that would ruin us, Winona blurted out. I stared coldly. You tried to ruin me. Consider this mercy. They left in shock. But they'd be back. They always come crawling when the ground under them starts to shake. And this time, I own the ground. The conference room at Quiet Harbor wasn't grand, but it would do. I arrived early, as always. Logan used to say, whoever controls the room first, controls the outcome. I chose a seat by the window back to the wall. Clear view of the door. Never sit with your back exposed. That was rule number 1 in Logan's book. I sipped a mild chamomile tea, pretending to be a fragile old woman preparing for a polite conversation. But in truth, I was preparing to set the record straight. They walked in as a group. G. Aubrey, Winona, Zephyr. Even the grandchildren trailed behind them, awkward and unsure. No one smiled. Not this time. Aubrey was the first to speak. Mom, we came to talk. So talk. She glanced at G, clearly hoping he'd lead. He didn't. He looked like a man who had just realized the chessboard was rigged from the start. Winona finally spoke up. We're sorry. We didn't mean for things to go this far. But these new lease agreements, they're impossible. We can't pay that kind of rent. Then sell your homes. Move. You don't mean that, Aubrey said quietly. I leaned forward. I mean every word. You burned down my house. You tried to erase me. All because you couldn't manage your own finances. G's voice cracked. We thought we'd be doing something better. The shopping center. It would have benefited everyone. With stolen land? Stolen money? Don't lie to me, G. I taught you how to read contracts. You knew that land wasn't yours. He looked away. I pulled out the fire report and placed it on the table. Do you know what this says? Accelerants. 2 points of origin. Tampered alarm. I had it reviewed by someone outside the department. Rita. She's still as sharp as ever. Silence. Then I placed the second file down. Bank statements. Withdrawal of $2,000 by Aubrey. Meeting with a known arsonist arranged by Zephyr. You had us followed? Zephyr snapped. Number. You just made it that easy. Aubrey looked sick. We didn't want you to get hurt. We needed a way out. I slammed my palm on the table. You made me climb out a window in the middle of the night. I could have died. Do you even understand what you did? They all looked down. You took a match to the life I built and thought I'd just sit in this nursing home and rot. But you forgot something. I reached under the table and pulled out the original land registry map. Every parcel circled in red. You're standing on my land. Literally. Bestel Properties owns every square foot beneath your homes. The only reason you've lived comfortably all these years is because I let you. That ends now. Thornton, my grandson, spoke up. His voice was soft but clear. Grandma, what about us? The kids? We didn't do any of this. I looked at him, really looked. He reminded me of Logan. Not in the ruthless way, but in the way his eyes held on to truth, even when it hurt. You're right, I said. This mess isn't yours, but I won't let your parents get away without consequence. G leaned forward, desperate. What do you want from us? I took a breath. Here are my terms. 1. Withdraw the insurance claim. 2. Sign a full written confession of the arson attempt. 3. Apology in paper. 4. Visit me every week. Show me that you still have some decency left. And 5. Pay a new lease not market price, but fair, manageable, honest. And if we agree? Aubrey asked. Then we move on. I won't press charges. I won't evict you. But if you break the agreement once, I will. And this time I won't be so kind. They exchanged glances. This wasn't a negotiation. It was surrender. We'll sign, G finally said. We're sorry, Mom. Really, we were just scared. You weren't scared. You were greedy. I stood up, straightened my jacket. You forgot who raised you. You forgot who I was before I was just Mom. But I promise you this is your last chance to remember. That night, as the sun dipped low over Quiet Harbor's garden, I sat beside Webley, watching the light fade behind the trees. Did it go how you wanted? He asked. More or less, I replied. He chuckled. They'll never mess with you again. They might. People forget fast when consequences fade. What are you going to do now? I smiled faintly. Live. A week after the confrontation, life at Quiet Harbor returned to its slow, gentle rhythm. Nurses pushed wheelchairs across flower-lined paths. Residents gathered for bingo or dozed off under warm sunlight. It was quiet, as the name promised. But inside me, there was no silence. Not yet. Because I was still watching, still calculating, still making sure every piece of the game landed exactly where it should. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry anymore. Something had shifted. Maybe it was watching Fergus's construction site come alive. Maybe it was the genuine thank you letter from my granddaughter Marlo. Maybe it was simply the relief of knowing I still had power not to destroy, but to rebuild. The morning Marcus called. I was sipping tea on the garden bench. He didn't need to say much. They signed everything, he told me. The confession, the withdrawal from the insurance company, the new lease terms. And James Norton? I asked, referring to Zephard's last business partner. Agreed to the modest increase in rent. Thanked you, actually. I smiled. Good. We're done here, Marcus. For now, he added. No, I said quietly. For good. Later that week, Fergus came by to visit. He brought blueprints and homemade pear preserves, salt of the earth kind of man. We're ahead of schedule, he said proudly. Foundations set. Framing starts Monday. Grand opening before summer. He looked at me with real gratitude in his eyes, the kind I hadn't seen from my own children in years. You changed our lives, he said. You gave us a shot when no one else would. No, I corrected. You were already doing the work. I just opened the gate. As he left, I felt something in my chest. Not pain, just a strange fullness, like a chapter closing the way it was supposed to. That evening, as the sun dipped below the trees and threw golden light across the garden, I sat on the bench again, watching the tulips sway. Webley joined me, carrying his chessboard. You in the mood to lose again? I teased. You wish. We played a few quiet moves before he asked, So, what now? I didn't answer right away. Because I wasn't sure. For decades, my life had been numbers, strategies, silence, secrets. I was Logan's wife, Edward's widow, the mother, the accountant, the landowner. But now, I was just Iris. And maybe that was enough. I think I'll invest in Fergus's store, I said finally. Nothing big, just enough to help it grow. Start fresh? Maybe. Or maybe I'm just tired of holding grudges. You forgave them? He asked, surprised. No, I said plainly, but I'm done punishing them. He nodded slowly. Big difference. Exactly. Aubrey started visiting again. Not out of obligation, but out of effort. She came with real questions, not just rehearsed sympathy. She asked me about Logan, about the land, about my early days. And she listened, really listened. G took longer. But when he came, he brought a photo album. Remember this? He asked, showing me a picture from his graduation day. I did. I remembered what it cost me to buy that suit. I remembered Logan wasn't there. I remembered feeling alone even then. But I nodded. Yes, I remember. We didn't talk about the fire, or the lies. Not yet. But the silence between us started to soften. Sometimes that's the best you can hope for. One morning, I woke up early and stared at the ceiling, listening to birdsong outside. For years, I thought legacy was land, property, control. But maybe it's something simpler. Maybe legacy is teaching your children what survival really looks like. Maybe it's planting lilacs and watching them grow taller than you ever did. Maybe it's surviving betrayal and still finding something left in you worth giving. Logan always said land was the only thing of value. But maybe he was wrong. Maybe forgiveness, earned not giveness, worth even more. And maybe starting over at 81 isn't so crazy after all.